Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. I am going to podcast about the Grizzlies' loss to the Nets. The Grizzlies got blown out at home by a Brooklyn Nets team that was struggling. They came into this game having averaged just 88 points per game over their previous three. They had 66 at halftime. The Grizzlies weirdly had 0 offensive rebounds at halftime. The Grizzlies gave up a 14-0 run in the second quarter that saw the lead balloon from 12 to 26, and that was sort of it. And the Grizzlies basically played out this second half in front of nobody. I said on Monday's episode this would be a sparsely attended game, I assumed, and apparently most people started leaving at halftime. By the time the game was over, when the camera panned out to show the crowd, I mean, it looked like a G League game. I mean, Summer League games have way more people at them. So a dispiriting, heartless, lifeless effort from the Grizzlies. You could say there's nothing to play for. That might be true, but still, you don't want to see that many more games like that. Unfortunately, we have had a lot of those games. I feel like on the broadcast, they kept saying, like, generally the Grizzlies have fought hard and we haven't had a lot of these this season. Yeah, we have. We've had a lot of these games this season. This was the 12th game of the year where they lost by at least 20 points. This was the 7th time they failed to score 100 points and also, by the way, lost by 20 or more. They've been blown out by 25 or more 6 times this year. So they've had some horrible games. By the way, the Grizzlies scored a season low, 86 points. They tied their season low with 7 made three-pointers. They only had 16 assists. They haven't won a game this year when they failed to score at least 100 points. And basically nobody had a good game except for one, Lamar Stevens. Lamar Stevens, congratulations on grabbing the coveted International Paper Player of the Game. That's based off the Grizzlies local broadcast, if you don't know what that means. Lamar Stevens scored a season-high 17 points, made 8 out of his 9 field goal attempts. Everybody else on the team shot 31%. 21 for 67 for the rest of the guys. Leading the Brick Brigade was Jaren Jackson Jr. and Gigi Jackson. Those guys combined for a woeful 3 out of 25 performance. Jaren was 2 for 12 from the field. He got to the foul line 13 times, but he struggled through this game. And Gigi, 1 out of 13 for Gigi. Like, these games in this lost season, we watch, I think, because we've been given this bright spot of, hey, Gigi Jackson is fun, and oh, by the way, Vince Williams Jr. is fun. Well, Gigi in this game, not fun at all. Gigi was hideous. He made one awesome dunk and missed every other shot, and many of his shots were a violent assault on the backboard. He shot so many deep three-pointers. He wasn't close on many of them. He had this one play where he did like 5 pump fakes in a row, faster than I've ever seen anybody else ever pump fake. Gigi was a nightmare out there, and I don't know how we're supposed to balance the really good games we saw from Gigi. Like, he clearly flashed in these, whatever it was. There was a 6-game streak, 5-game streak where he scored a bunch of points. He was very efficient. He's making lots of plays, not just scoring, that affected winning or affected the Grizzlies staying close. In this one, he was just chucking, and it was hard to watch. I mean, Taylor Jenkins was asked about it after the game, and he said that Gigi needs to enjoy this experience and just focus on the fact that, hey, you're going to have bad games, and try to find ways to contribute that aren't just shooting. Try to find ways to contribute when the shot isn't going in. But the 1 out of 13 performance for Gigi, I mean, literally, that's one of the worst shooting performances in Grizzlies franchise history. The worst field goal percentage in a game for any individual player in Grizzlies franchise history with a minimum of 10 field goal attempts. I mean, it's 0. Justin Holiday had an 0 for 10 game. Jared Bayless had a 0 for 11 game. And then Gigi's 1 for 13 game is tied for the 4th worst field goal percentage in any single game by a player attempting at least 10 or more field goals. The only player with one making more misses was Michael Dickerson in the year 2000 for Vancouver. He had a 1 for 14 game in a loss where the Vancouver Grizzlies only scored 75 points. 1 for 13, the worst shooting night of Gigi Jackson's career. Hopefully it stays that way. We don't get a lot of other shooting performances like this one. Now, I said, the bright spot this year is we watch Gigi, we watch Vince. Vince did not do much in this game. And here's me assigning my own, I don't know if it's malaise watching the basketball game. I worry the fire in Vince's eyes has gone out a little bit. It seemed like in this game and a little bit in the Clippers game, he's kind of playing the game with a 1,000-yard stare. And I know I'm just applying my own lens to this, and it's probably not what's happening, but I'm worried he's kind of lost some of that spark. I'm not seeing him make the multiple effort plays. I'm not seeing him do those Vince Williams Jr. things that I fell in love with. He's not, to my eye, being very aggressive out there. And I know he's a limited offensive player. He is not great at the offensive end of the court, but it still feels like he's passing up shots. He's not attacking the basket like he should. So I don't know, maybe we just write this one off. It was a bad game for the whole team, and we can forgive Vince for a forgettable performance. His 6-game streak of having 7 or more assists was snapped. He had 5 assists and 4 turnovers. Now, the other starters, once again, were Santi Aldama and Luke Kennard, and I've grown particularly annoyed with those guys, and that's on me. Okay, I don't need to focus on them as much. They are useful role players, but I continue to get hung up on how both of these guys have had such huge opportunities this year, where virtually everyone ahead of them on the depth chart or around them on the depth chart is unavailable. And they've had the opportunity to start games and to play basically as many minutes as they could handle. And neither one this whole year has stepped up. Like Santi had some big scoring games in November. But since November, where Santi had 3 games scoring 20 or more, he doesn't have any. He scored 7 points again. He's averaging a career high in minutes played, but like his points per possession, it's not up. His shots per possession, they are up, but he's shooting a much worse field goal percentage this season. So like he's not making much of an impact on any of these games. The positive thing has been that his assists are up and he is spreading the ball pretty well. But like Santi had every chance. I mean, no Brandon Clark for the year. You find out before the season, Steven Adams is done for the year. Then you trade away Xavier Tillman. Everyone on the front court besides Jaren Jackson Jr. is gone. He had a promising year 2. You thought in year 3, this is the chance to step up and prove he's belonged. He hasn't proven that to me. To me, he's, as I say, he's just a guy. He's an end of bench player. He isn't someone that you have to keep around. Like he should have shown this year that he's irreplaceable. He's extremely replaceable to me. And then there's Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard, there's no Marcus Smart. There's no Desmond Bane. There's no Ja Morant. mean, those guys have basically not been together, or we haven't had all three of those guys. I think it's something like 20 games. There's been 20 games where all three of those guys weren't there. So, Luke, this is your chance, man. Do something. He took 3 field goal attempts. 8 players took more field goal attempts than Luke in the game on Monday night. And yeah, Luke scored 11 points. Great job. Incredible efficiency. 3 field goal attempts, 11 points. But if you're not going to step up and do more, to me, it shows he's a very replaceable player. Like, if you had somebody who didn't know much about the Grizzlies' salaries, like the individual player salaries, I think it would be a fun game, maybe a fun Price is Right style game to say, hey, here's a list of the amounts that various Grizzlies players make. Now watch this game against the Nets. Now you assign who you think makes the money. I mean, they'd all say, well, Lamar Stevens is your best player, even though he was the 10th guy in the game. I mean, another thing about this game that made it feel maybe not that serious was actually the rotation. Like Lamar Stevens, 10th guy in the game. There's nothing weird about that necessarily. But they played 10 guys, which is not maybe what you would have done if you really wanted to win the basketball game. You're starting your bench players. So you played 10 guys, meaning you went very, very deep into the depth chart. You played Yuta Watanabe and Gigi Jackson and Jake LaRavia. There was a time in the first quarter of this game where I'm thinking, oh, maybe Lamar Stevens is going to get a DMP tonight because they clearly want to give Yuta a chance to play. Like, oh, this is a Yuta Watanabe showcase game. That's fair. That's fine. We picked him up in this trade. He has a player option for next year, so maybe we need to find out if we're interested in actually keeping Yuta. So they played Yuta, but then they also played Lamar Stevens. You had Gigi Jackson, Jake LaRavia, and Yuta Watanabe all on the court at the same time. And then, oh, by the way, you also had Lamar Stevens and Derrick Rose. You had all 5 bench players playing at the same time in this game, which I thought that was, I don't know, a little bit notable. It, to me, signaled maybe organizationally, we're not taking this game as serious as we could. And I said on yesterday's episode, we don't need to tank because all that stuff's, taking care of itself. But if there were one game you could lose, it would be a good one to lose. It was this one. I also said, God bless anyone who watches the game. And yeah, those of you who did that, good job. Impressive work. You are a hardcore fan. But I thought it was weird how they did not lean, heavier minutes to their best players. They went 10 deep. They played all bench lineups. All of that seemed a little bit strange. And even if Vince, didn't seem like the most engaged, the most checked in, like they were still basically fine when he was on the court. The Nets had that 14-0 second quarter run. Basically, the minute Vince subbed out. They took Vince out, and then all of a sudden the lead ballooned from 12 to 26. And the Nets were hitting shots. The Nets, maybe they were due because they'd had so many bad offensive performances in a row coming into this one. But also, the Grizzlies defense was so discombobulated. There were multiple inbounds passes for the Nets where they just threw it straight to the basket and got layups. They finished the first quarter on one of these, like an alley-oop, a sort of alley-oop to Cam Johnson, where I think maybe it was Gigi Jackson got confused on switches. And if you're playing Gigi and Jake LaRavia and Yuta Watanabe and Lamar Stevens all at the same time, you're going to have some defensive issues just because those guys aren't accustomed to each other. These are lineups that have never played together. By the way, Luke Kennard. So I was talking about how Santi has had no 20-point games, since November. Luke's had no 20-point games this year. He's averaging 25 minutes per game. Everyone ahead of him on the depth chart is unavailable. His main skill is scoring. I guess it's shooting. He's 6th in the NBA in three-point percentage. Congratulations. You got to have an impact on the game. Jake LaRavia. All right, we've now seen 2 games of Jake LaRavia. I would say for this game, maybe this is a hot take, he was mostly fine. His drives towards the basket are horrible. or his attempts at finishing when he drives at the basket, terrible looking. And also, he doesn't normally make jumpers. So, of course, that's why I think no one is very excited or high on his play so far. But he did knock down a first quarter three. And also, the rest of his game looked pretty good. He actually made two really good defensive plays in this game where he blocked shots. One was like a swipe down on Cam Thomas. Also had an incredible block of a corner three-pointer. So, like, Jake honestly looked okay. Just if you ignore, the drives towards the basket and some of the shooting. So, like, he filled up the stat sheet at the very least. Had 10 points, had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, those 2 blocks, and a steal. Yuta Watanabe showed very little. He had 1 garbage time dunk. He made 1 good assist to Lamar Stevens for a wide open corner 3. We're still waiting on that Utah jumper to show up for the Grizzlies. And then Derrick Rose played. Derrick Rose played in consecutive games, had 6 points and 4 assists. Like, looking at my social media feed, I feel like a lot of the conversation about the game is just disappointment in Jaren. I have very little issue, with Jaren's play in this one. He is outmatched. The other teams know he's basically our one offensive option. He did not obviously have a good game. I mean, he was pretty bad. His rebounding was poor in this one, and it wasn't a situation of him not being in the right spot for rebounds. There were examples of the Nets grabbing offensive rebounds when, in my mind, Jaren was there, should have gotten the rebound. But, like, it is what it is. I'm not concerned about Jaren's overall fit or long-term viability on the Grizzlies. Jaren is awesome. This season is lost. But my concern for the rest of the guys is you've basically shown me nothing. Zaire, I guess I haven't mentioned Zaire yet. Like, when we look to this team next year, he's a take him or leave him. It doesn't matter. Santi Aldama, I'm becoming that way with him. Luke Kennard, I'm becoming that way with him. It's like, what do these guys do? What do they do that other NBA players can't do that you could just immediately replace them with? Zaire, struggled 3 for 11. I mean, I guess I did mention his bad shooting. He had 6 points in 25 minutes, 2 rebounds, no assists. So the Grizzlies now have to go on the road and play the very good Minnesota Timberwolves before returning home to play 2 games in a row, Friday and Saturday night, a back-to-back against the Portland Trailblazers. That should be some real fancy basketball. Grizzlies, Trailblazers, playing twice in 24 hours. I will now extend my blessing to anyone who attends both games. Let me know how it goes. There's not much to talk about with this game. Just an ugly game for an ugly season. Hopefully, Gigi uses it as a learning tool. He can watch the film and be like, yeah, I got to stop doing a lot of these things. Let's end the game. Let's end the episode, excuse me, with some talk. You guys asked for it. Here you go. Some Tarik Biberovic talk. Tarik, as you remember, was the Grizzlies' 56th pick in the draft last season. He played Summer League for the Grizzlies last year. Well, Tarik made a splash this week in EuroBasket qualifiers. Now, I am, of course, speaking out of my depth, talking about the EuroBasket qualifiers, but Tarik Biberovic had a 27-point performance in his first ever appearance for the Turkey national team. This was in a loss to Italy, but he made this massive debut for his national team. And then in the next game he played, he hit a game-winning buzzer beater to defeat Iceland. He scored 11 points and had 4 rebounds in that game. So there you go. There's your Tarik Biberovic update. He is a 6'7", 23-year-old small forward, if you did not know, who definitely raised some eyebrows this week with his play in international basketball. He's playing in the Turkish Super League for Fenerbahce. So another name to monitor for the Grizzlies, someone who they have the draft rights for, and maybe we will see him reappear at Summer League this summer. Anyways, that is the episode for today. If you want to join the Grits and Grinds Slack channel, please do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Have a lot of fun over there with the hardcore Grizzlies fans, talking with them during the game, organizing my thoughts, sometimes getting hilarious memes that they share. Really appreciate Stavro for sharing one of those memes that then I posted on social media and got all the credit for. So thanks to those people who have supported the show at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you're out there and you want to join that community, please do it. Do it right now. Anyways, hope you guys have a great Tuesday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.